What if I told you that getting the most out of your Epson scanner wasn't really that difficult? Well, today I've got a step-by-step guide on how you can scan film negatives like a pro. Prepping the scanner. There are a few things you're going to need for this video, kind of a supplies list type of thing. The first thing is an Epson scanner. This video is for Epson scanners, specifically flatbeds. I have the Epson Perfection V330 Photo. I know it rolls right off the tongue. That's the model I have. If you have any other type of Epson flatbed, then this video is for you. You want some developed film negatives, especially cut into strips of 6. The film tray holder that came with my Epson scanner is specifically for 35mm negatives or slides. You can buy other tray holders if you want, but that's what I'm going to be covering in this video. You're going to want non-Epson scanning software. I personally use Silverfast SE, and we will get into it more later. You don't just want to be using Epson's default scanning software. An air rocket or a microfiber cloth. I don't have an air rocket. I usually just wipe things off with the microfiber, and that seems to work well. If you want to use gloves, I hear you're supposed to use cotton gloves. I don't, but you may want to save yourself some headache and some time. Usually with me and my scanning process, it takes me about 2 hours to scan an entire roll of 36 exposures. We're going to start with loading your film negatives. This is probably the very first thing you're going to do, and it's also why you're going to want your strips cut into frames of 6. If you look at the film tray, there are only 6 available slots open, so be sure that you are cutting your strips into 6. This tray is completely plastic, so you kind of want to be careful. I thought I was going to break it the entire time I was first using it, but it's a little more durable than you think. Just be careful. While lifting up on the tab of the film tray, use your thumb and first fingers to kind of twist it back and forth at the same time, and that'll allow it to release the retention clips. Grab your strip of 6 frames and be sure to wipe it down or blast it with the air rocket first. And there's a shiny and a matte side of film negatives. Take your negative with the shiny side down and slide it into the opening underneath the hinge. Once the negative is placed into the anchoring points at the base of the hinge, hold the other end of the negative down while you close the tray, and be sure you hear the click of the retention clips as you close it. I'm going to start by assuming you already have the utility software downloaded for your Epson scanner. You can get it off Epson's website if not, but do that before you continue on. Now I like to do a little basic cleaning before I get started. That means on top of the scanner lid, the scanning glass itself, and your basic work area in the vicinity of the scanner. You're trying to eliminate every opportunity for dust to get in and mess up your negatives. Place your negative tray onto the scanner bed, lining up the pegs on the tray with the open holes on the scanner. Again, shiny side down. Plug the scanner into the wall, plug the fat end of the USB into the back of the scanner, and then plug the normal USB end into your computer. Turn on the scanner and launch your scanning software. Software. Here's where we get into software. My software of choice is called Silverfast SE. It's kind of the bottom rung of their scanning software offerings. It's $50, but it will honestly be the best $50 you've spent in your film photography career. The software is really robust. Once you buy it, you'll get permanent updates forever. It has great features like automatic inversions and dust and scratch cleaning, and the interface is super easy to work around. We'll get into the actual interface in a minute, but you're gonna need non-Epson scanning software. Now, Silverfast was a recommendation to me by Nick Carver. He has a scanning video up as well, and I haven't been disappointed yet. There are other scanning softwares like ViewScan. I don't use ViewScan because it requires you use it as a plugin in Adobe Photoshop or Lightroom, and I like to use Adobe products as little as possible. In fact, I'm trying to eliminate them entirely from my life. So just do a little research. There are YouTube videos out there on the basic walk around of the UI for each of the scanning software, but the main thing is you just don't want to use Epson scanning software because it's not feature rich enough to get you great results, and external software will really take your film scanning to the next level. And just like that, you're ready to scan. Let's go ahead and hop into Silverfast and get some negatives scanned. Alright, first things first, I'm going to take you on a quick tour around the UI and the software. That way you know how you can get the best out of Silverfast. I'm looking at my computer over here. If this looks weird, that's why I'm facing this direction now. So at the top menu bar, you have options for transparency and reflective. You're going to want to choose transparency because we are scanning film negatives. Next option is for negative and positive. We're going to choose negative. I like to choose the next option as 48 to 24 bit and then frame. Frames are what Silverfast calls the selection area. You're going to draw frames and select the image on your negative once you do a pre-scan. Speaking of pre-scan, we're going to take a look at the very top menu bar along the middle. Pre-scan, which is what you're going to be using most. I actually don't touch almost all of the middle ones. And then at the very end, there's scan and batch scan. If you aren't familiar, there's a difference. Batch scan is scanning multiples at one time or during one session. So you can set up multiple frames, select batch scan, and walk away, and it'll scan all of the negatives that you've put into frames. Something that is pretty cool, that is a good tip, that once you've done all your adjustments on one frame, you don't have to make all those adjustments again on every single frame. Just go up to the frame drop-down menu and select copy to all frames. Alright, heading back to the left side of the software, you have the Scan Dimensions menu. This is where you're going to select your naming conventions, your destination for your scans, and where you can select the image quality. Now, it may be a little confusing why there's a preset drop-down for image quality, but then also a slider for also image quality. I was kind of having a difficult time trying to find a way to explain this because even in Silverfast's documentation on their website, it's not super clear. Preset drop-down menu is for if you have printing in mind, you can select a preset PPI. That way you don't really have to get into the nitty-gritty of actually dialing in the PPI you want. So you can use the drop-down menu for a shortcut, like I have it always set to photo, which is 300 ppi, and then I use the slider to dial in what optical resolution the scanner is actually going to be scanning at. So my version of scanner can scan up to 4000 ppi. I usually set it at 2400, so I get a nice balance of file size and quality at the same time. You can dial it back all the way to 72 and low quality scan if you just want archival scans. Maybe you're storing a ton of them at a time and you just want to have them digitized just in case. Or you can go all the way up to 4000 and above and scan your negatives for super huge fine art prints. You can do that too. So really flexible. These sliders are really helpful. If you drop down one more, you have densitometer. I don't even know what that is. It's not a part of my workflow, so I haven't bothered looking it up. Moving down farther, you have a navigator. You're going to use this after you zoom in to your negatives, and you can be able to move around a little easier around the whole negative instead of zooming out and in over and over. Next, you have picture settings for midtones, contrast, and saturation. I leave these all at 0 because I want to make those adjustments later in Lightroom. If you want to avoid Adobe products entirely in your workflow, you can just do those settings when you're scanning in the negative. I like to just leave it at 0 just because it gives the scanner less to do, takes less time, and I prefer making those adjustments later in Lightroom anyway. Moving down farther, we have one of the few huge sellers for me on Silverfast, and that is Negative Fix. You'll notice in the very first dropdown you have manufacturer names, then you have film types, and then you have ISOs. They have so many different film types in this menu, and they're constantly updating it. I actually, when opening the software, had an update to add more film stock types, and that's the cool thing about buying the software is you're locked in to get all new film types added forever. So you can go in here, for example, the last thing I scanned was Ilford HP5 Plus, and it was 400 ISO film. So I put that in and it automatically gives you a great starting point for your negative that you almost never have to change any settings for. The CCR checkbox is a tool that can address orange cast in your scans. You can toggle it on and off just to see if it makes a difference. I usually leave it on, but sometimes it looks better with it off. So it's just kind of a case-by-case thing. I have the exposure and tolerance checked to stay at auto. Exposure and tolerance is very helpful as well. You can turn up the tolerance of the CCR or you can turn it down, make it a little less aggressive. So you can make those fine-tuned adjustments before you even make any scans. Next, we're going to talk about SRDX. This is the scratch and dust removal tool. This is the second huge software advantage this has over others. It uses the infrared light in your scanner to find and paint out dust and scratches from your negatives without you even having to do it. It's really, really accurate. It's taken a while for me to dial in my settings exactly how I like them, but I'm able to basically leave them always on. Those settings are the detection at 10 and a tile size of 12 with bright defects checked. So copy those settings if you'd like, give those a shot. It may work for you depending on your dust environment. We have 2 cats, so we are in a higher dust environment. If you have less dust, you may need less. If you have more dust, you may need more. And then at the very bottom, I have the scanner status window, and you can see the progression of your scan. And there you go. You are ready to scan. Just go up and select batch scan, title how you would like, choose your image format. We're going to use TIFFs. I always use TIFFs for the initial scan because we can export as JPEGs later, and then hit export. And it's actually really nice that it takes a minute because I can go do other things at the same time that I'm doing this. I'm not just like sitting and only working on this. I can do this, I can fold laundry, I can have lunch. From there, you can take your scanned TIFFs into Lightroom or Photoshop and make your color adjustments, export those as JPEGs, and you've got a beautiful scan, baby, that you can keep forever. I want to talk about one thing that a lot of people may not think about, and that is something called digital hygiene. And it's not washing your hard drives with soap, it's a technique to make sure you never lose any of your things. I have a bunch of external hard drives. Some are small and one is very large at 5 terabytes. I always use one of the small hard drives to back up everything onto, and then I also back everything onto the larger external drive as well. That way I have things in multiple different places, and if one fails, then I know I always have a backup. I guess proper file hygiene would say that I need an offsite backup as well. We don't know anybody in Raleigh, so I don't really have anywhere that I could put another hard drive, but if I did, I would put one in someone else's house as well. So if you follow this step-by-step guide, you're going to end up with some beautiful scans. Thank you again. If you've made it this far in the video, be sure to subscribe and like. I really do appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. I'm trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of summer, so help me out. Instagram is some street photos, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Take it easy.